going to go open a project file because that's probably going to be a good example of how to get this type of thing working. Ding 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 ding. Yeah. Okay. I'm being dumb about this. Give me a second. I'm being incredibly stupid mode. The fuck did I put this? Did you just have this project file open? Damn. Okay. Let's see if this project file opens. Because it has been a bit. I hope this works. I've got no idea if it does. Okay. Hello, everyone. Is you guys recording up? Is that all good? Okay. I'll do my face cam on. I'll be the devil a little bit. Enjoy my Rick and Morty poster behind. I'll put my other light on. I look gorgeous. Hello. Today we're talking about collabing, specifically how to collab more and better, in a way that is results oriented, I guess, and also just.
Am I lagging or?
I don't know. Are you lagging?
Seems alright to me. I don't know.
Okay. I am in South Africa, so that might be an affecting factor. I'll turn off camera. Okay. First off, we're gonna outline basics of like why collab in the first place at all. And to my mind, there's like 4 decent reasons. Reason 1, it's fun. It's fun and good to collab with people. That's kind of self-evident. I don't think I kind of need to explain that more. Reason 2 is to teach yourself, to learn a lot. That's one of the reasons why I collab a lot. Is so that I can essentially steal people's swag and I can learn how and why they think the way that they do, and through that I can apply that to my own things that I make, to everything that I think is interesting, and I can take maybe the way that they process their influences and the way that they think about their art and their production and apply that to my own. Reason 3 is to gain a perspective on the difference between input and output. With music in particular, your product that exists as an output is not the session itself. The session itself kind of really doesn't matter to 90% of people. The most important thing is like what comes out of it, the audio that comes out of it, the thing that comes out the master, the final WAV file. Everything that's in the session is like not super duper important. What collabing can do is can give you different perspectives on that input to output relationship. So your session, the way that your session can affect the output, the way that your philosophy can affect your output. And then reason 4, and this applies more to collaborating with people who you wouldn't otherwise think to collaborate with, is it gives you a perspective on things and appreciation for things that you didn't otherwise think you could have. For example, on my campus there's a guy who makes Psytrance, who I'm decent friends with, and I kind of really don't care about Psytrance by itself. Psytrance as a genre is not something that's like super duper interesting to me. That's fine, but through working with him fairly often, actually, I've gained an appreciation of the way of certain types of styles of production, certain ways to use different effects, certain ways to think about it. What's most interesting to me is when you collaborate with people across genre borders or across maybe prospective boarders is the types of questions that they ask when working on stuff will be wildly different to the types of questions you might ask yourself. For example, a question I hadn't considered making music on the internet was, hey, where in my city will this get played? Does this get played in my city at shows? The question would be, cool, how can I play that? Or how loud, how can I master it? Or how do you worry about mastering that? Or how does that sound on this system or this system? How does that sound in this context, in this context? Working with people allows you to have access to these questions as well, and allows you to I guess, inform more richly the ways in which you create. Yeah. This is less common in the Blizzard Sleepy Zone side of SoundCloud, but I feel like it's important to mention, like, at the top of this talk, is that it is not worth ruining a connection over a collaboration 90% of the time. It is just music. It is really not that deep, right? When you are working with someone, it is important to quite early on establish the boundaries of how important this particular collaboration is to you, or how important production is in your life at the moment. Sometimes this will be incredibly self-evident because you've been friends with a while. Sometimes not so much. If you're making friends, for example, if you're making friends with someone who is a career musician or a career person who works in audio, it means that the stakes are necessarily going to be higher than someone who does it on the side for fun, or someone who does it as a hobby, right? And being aware of these types of questions can help prevent resentment from building about stems not being finished, or things being put on the rack to dry, if you know what I mean. Additionally, there will be other opportunities. Door for a second. My dog came in. It's going to be a little bitch the whole time. Evil creature full of sin. Yeah. Other thing to establish when you are starting off in your is to start from common ground as quickly as you can. In an environment like Form or Goop House or Sleepy Zone, even anything that's like timed, or Silk and Wood Better Together, where you maybe not necessarily would work with this person otherwise, it is useful to talk as immediately as you can and figure out what vocabulary you share artistically. Figure out what DNA, like, artistically lives inside both of you, because that's going to make communication further on much easier, because you're going to be you're going to be consciously and deliberately drawing from the same influences, and consciously and deliberately considering things that the other person already knows. Just makes everything run faster, run more smooth. If you're not super, it's especially important if you're not super duper close with a person. I would recommend, if you are planning on working with someone who you're not close with ahead of time, for like a time to collab thing, get in a call or whatever and just talk for a bit. Just talk about what you're interested in, and find, if you don't have a lot of common ground, maybe find what underlying factors they're interested in. For example, off the top of my head, I can kind of intuitively know if someone is making like indie music or folk music. Vocals and vocal writing are kind of inherently more important to them than someone who's making trench or someone who's making tear out. Or the way in which those things are important is going to be different, and that's going to like factor into when it comes time to be like, okay, cool, I feel like this frequency space needs to be filled with vocals. A Terra producer might be like, oh, well, AI stem ripper time. The boys are liars. There we go, done. Versus someone who makes music that's more vocal focused, or whose intentions and perspective on art aligns more with lyric writing and imparting meaning through vocals. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. Getting these types of questions out the way, again, as early as possible, only makes for smoother collaboration. Yeah, cool. Once you've like done this type of shit ahead of time, this can take an hour. This can take like days and weeks and months. If you are friends with the person and you just kind of pick up this information over time. when times like literally just sit and like work on something, it is incredibly important that you get your idea out as quick as you possibly can and get it as workable as quick as you possibly can. Um, get it speed run, getting to a state where you can start editing and iterating. The reason why is because, especially when you're with someone else, it is the easiest shit in the fucking world to just be like, well, this riff sounds cool, 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 that's a cool yoink, that's a cool sound, that's a cool sound, that's a cool sound, and nothing gets done at all ever, which is frustrating and a waste of time for both of you in some instances. Especially if your goal at the top of like agreeing to work with one another is to have something come out of it. There's nothing wrong with jamming. There's nothing wrong with jam sessions. It is very fun and good and rewarding, but it is not necessarily what you want to do when you are maybe you have a limited time together. If you got a layover in a city and you're working with someone for a short period of time, or if you are paying for studio time, or again, there's an otherwise timeline on what you want to work with. Yeah, there's a couple. Starting with when it comes to like getting your ideas out as quickly as possible, there's, to my mind, about 4 different ways that you can like jumpstart this process. Thing 1 is to visit and expand an existing idea that you have, just a motif that you had lying around, maybe a lyric, maybe a single line, maybe a production concept that you've been meaning to play with. Thing 2 is to give the other person a palette. So in bass music or in electronic music, that could be giving them a bunch of samples, giving them a bunch of sound design, giving a bunch of patches. I'm gonna pet you in a. It's not that bad. You'll be fine. You'll survive. I'm gonna big my microphone. I'm gonna pet my dog while I talk about this stuff. Microphone, that'd be great. Yeah. Other get my train of thought back. Cool. Third method of getting something started is to pick a song that you both like and bite it. Just make it back. If you both like, if you this comes down a little bit as well to the getting your inspirations in order ahead of time. Finding a song that you like and then saying, "Hey, I want to make something like this," or "Hey, I want to make something that's this, but me." Is a great way to give yourself a concrete goal to work towards and to give yourself a measurable amount of progress, I guess. Thing 4, semi-related, is to find, and this one's especially useful if you're working with someone who share little, don't share as much background with, is to fuse some stuff that you like. If you take 2 different songs that you like and then conceptually mash them up. So you could take like the drums from a Cohen Sound song and mix it up with the production sensibilities of the latest Taylor Swift album, right? What does that sound like? Cool. When doing this style of working with one another and collaborating, it is important to be specific about what you're taking, about what you're biting, about why you're biting it, because that's going to give you a measurable outcome, a quantifiable. Okay, did we succeed? Did we not succeed? How close are we to actually getting there? You'll find I talk so far. I've been talking a lot about like getting measurable outputs. The reason for this is so that you are able to see you're able to, 1, not waste time, but 2, you're able to see like halfway through the process, halfway through your production timeline. Cool. Is this something worth continuing? Or what about this is worth continuing? And like, how much of this do we want to like go through with and go forward? Some people are incredibly internally motivated to like push themselves. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to do that, and it is useful to have an external measurable factor that helps you both align your perspectives. Cool. Once you've got some of this stuff together, if you want to maximize your time, it is important to think structurally. yeah, is to again, this is related to like fusing ideas, but it applies to writing songs you like as well. Think in terms of broad details first and specify later. The reason for this, one, besides maximizing time, is that it allows you and your collaborator to later on pick apart which details you think are important and enhance which details you and your collaborator or collaborators think are important. There are genres of music where some details matter and other details don't. There are tons of drum and bass songs where they have the most inane writing in the world lyrically, but it's catchy. But it's really, really catchy. There's tons of indie songs that aren't particularly catchy but have incredibly specific styles of writing. Those are two different, not diametrically opposed details necessary, but two different details and different areas of focus. That when you're later on in a production timeline, you and your collaborators can choose to specify in. Another thing is to, when you are working together, this is one of the benefits of working with one another, is to be honest about the results. What do I mean with this? How is this important? Sometimes you think something is shit and your collaborator doesn't. That's good. That's good and normal. Don't get it twisted. That's a good thing. Everyone in the world has the best taste ever and also likes things that are dog shit a little bit. You know what I mean? And when people's dog shit tastes don't align and people's good tastes don't align, we can sort of come. You can get to some very interesting middle grounds by having these two influences push against one another in interesting ways towards what you both can agree is good. In general, this tends to, one, push you out your comfort zone, but two, it allows you to have someone else account for where your perspective maybe is lacking, where maybe your experience is lacking. Cool. Well, while you are working, where you can, again, this is important in like a timed environment, maybe less so in a broader production timeline. But avoid redundancies, avoid redundant time, right? When you break apart your song into different component parts, see if what different things you can work on simultaneously. This can be someone's working on a verse while at the exact same time the other person's working on a chorus. So you've essentially made 1 hour of like real time into 2 hours worth of productivity if you're both working on it for an hour. Doing this is a really good way to allow your production timeline to speed up and allow you to get to the end of your collab faster. Yeah. I was gonna say something else, but it's gone. Yeah. This doing this and creating these spaces in time where you can both work on the same thing is going to be easier if you have a fairly thorough talk about your common goals at the start of your production. It's a bit harder if you're like, well, then we'll do this, and maybe we'll do this, and maybe we'll do this, and maybe we'll do this, blah 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 blah. Next step, as you are working, get a to-do list at each iterative stage of production, right? So every couple of hours, every couple of sessions, be like, cool, what still needs to happen in the song for it to get as done as possible? What do we think it still needs? So the big thing is going to go to the minutia and save that. Then, if you are working continuously, be like, okay, cool. Well, then let's do this. Let's assign this. Again, maximize our productivity by working on what we can simultaneously, and then where we can't, we don't. Or just keep it at a session. 3D Notepad, a different Notepad app. I've made a Max for Live Notepad thing that you can just like put on your master and then just type notes on. Logic has a Notepad feature. Bitwig has a Notepad feature. Having these notes, if you're working like non-continuously, very, very important for working with past use perspective of like what was missing and what you thought was missing. Related to this, it is important to save iterative versions as you're working. This is good for any like broad scale production timeline, but if you are if you are saving iterative versions, it allows you to maybe later on a production stage be like, well, I like what we were doing like 3 hours into this project, or where was that lyric that you wrote 17 hours ago? Allows you to reintroduce some of those ideas. Next up is when you are working particularly with stems, and working with files online, is to not be afraid to bust your stuff down. Uh, Reason for this is twofold. One, it will save you time on exporting, which will allow you to have more time to actually be working and composing and designing. And reason two is because it kind of cements your ideas in place and prevents you and your collaborator from fussing over minutia when you don't need to be. Well, generally, like this will be like bass, drums, tonal, vocal, misc effects. These will change from project to project, but you kind of intuitively can get a sense. Additionally, if you are being good about saving your iterative versions, if your collaborator wants something specific that you bust in, you can just bounce it out specifically. A lot of the time, it doesn't serve you to have that amount of granular control when working with someone. Yeah. Then let's assume you've gotten a fair ways through the production timeline. You've buzzed everything down, and you've worked and you've worked and you've worked and worked. We're going to be talking about like getting close to the end of your timeline, and like knowing when something is done. For something like Form or Goop House or Sleepover or so, like beat battles or whatever, it's very easy to know. When the time is up, you are done. Necessarily, you can't work on it any longer. This is harder for other contexts, for maybe non-continuous contexts, or for like broader production timelines. In general, it is a good idea for you to look at the goals that you set at the start and be like, okay, cool. Were we successful in this? Then, based on that, and in parallel, do we like the result? Does it matter that we were successful at what we set out to do or not? There are contexts where it does matter and doesn't matter. If you are, when I'm talking with friends and when I'm talking with, I philosophize because I'm pretentious, about the ways in which practical utility informs art, and like illusions that exist within frameworks. Right. The reason that house music is popular and has a 4/4 bass, 4 on the floor kick pattern, is because a 4 on the floor kick pattern is one of the easiest to gain rhythm and dance to. And if your goal, and if it is to make music that makes people dance, to make a product that has the direct reaction make a person dance, it serves you in cases to work in house, and it serves you to have those kinds of patterns. When you're working with someone else and your utility and your goal is cool, I want to make something that I want to be playing at clubs, or cool, I want to make something that I want to be appeal to this group of people, or I'm making something that I want to appeal to like the specific audience that maybe you have cultivated versus the specific audience I have cultivated. Those are types of questions that you can ask yourself about like goals, as it were, as opposed to nebulously the art existing. Other thing that you can do if you want to see if a collab is done is to look at it and be honest, and be brutal and say, cool, if I release this, or if we release this, would there be anything that we would want to change? That sounds like obvious, but it is the case where you are working with someone who's maybe you're close friends with and you respect and you want to like sever a connection with them, or someone who you maybe don't talk to that much, or maybe someone who is intimidatingly more popular than you. Being honest at the stage of production will allow you to not only collaborate more efficiently in the future, but it will also allow you to like get towards a better finished product at the end. Yeah, that's most of what I want to talk about. Last thing is this is for both continuous and non-continuous collaboration timelines. Back your shit up. Backing up is important always, but it is very, very important when you're working with someone else, because it's not just your stuff that's on the line. It is their time as well. And I think it is a self-evidently good value to value other people's time and to value other people's effort. Backing your stuff up just respect for that a little bit, and also means that you are going to be able to, if something goes wrong, have the work that they put in still be in place. Any questions? I don't even know what questions are asked. What channel that is that?
I got a question.
Go ahead, shoot.
Like, for the more, like socially awkward types, definitely not talking about myself here. Haha. Like, how do you like, fuck, this sounds like super obvious, but like, how do you like reach out for a collab? Like, if you like, you know, like, are into what someone does and they're like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It probably seems obvious, but to me, it's not, I guess.
I mean, so it's not a bad question. Like knowing when you want to work with someone, and like if you want to work with someone. First question is step is just to ask. Is literally just to say, hey, I like your stuff and I want to work with you. As discussed up top, collabing is fun and you can learn from it. Second question that you might want to ask yourself is like, this one is a little bit utility and it's a bit cruel and I don't like it a lot. But it is a question that is worth asking in some contexts. Can you and the other person meaningfully offer yourself something, offer one another something, like actually? It's good and important to work with people who come from different like backgrounds of art and different backgrounds of creating stuff, but when at the top of like like collabing with someone, it is important to think about yourself. Hey, do I have something that I meaningfully can give this other person? Right. An example is like my friend 4CF Zach, really good vocalist, really talented, really popular as well. As it stands right now, have very little that I can offer Zach in terms of the stuff that I'm making right now doesn't really fit what they're what they I know them to be interested in or what they have released necessarily, and that's fine, right? If you are if it's someone who's like, if you're running in the same types of circles, or if for example you are a basic example is if you are listening to yourself on SoundCloud or listening and someone else keeps on coming in your recommendations fairly often, then you can be fairly certain that the same types of people who are listening to your stuff are also going to be listening to their stuff. And you can be like, hey, have a lot of crossover audience. Would you like to work together on something? Another reason. Mechanistically, if you're talking about like how to ask to collab, like I said, easiest thing is literally just to ask. Literally just to go up to the person, either on Discord or on like Twitter and whatever, and say, "Hey, I like your stuff. Do you want to work on something?" And frustratingly, people do say no, which sucks and is heartbreaking forever. But it really is not the end of the end of the world when people say no to working on stuff. Mostly because nothing is lost and nothing is gained from someone saying no to collaborating, aside from like a bit of a bruise to ego. You are if you and someone else don't collab, you are in the exact same position you were yesterday. You are not worse off for someone not collabing with. Does that make sense? Hello. Anyone other have other questions in their heart and their soul, in their quest for meaning in their life? Swag. We 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 many spinnings for sharks. Sharks. Evil creature full. Taylor. She is an evil creature full of sin. She steals wallets. My dog has stole wallets. My dog steals knives. My dog stole a credit card once. Yeah, evil creature full of sin. Evil ass creature. Okay, I shut up for the Tokipona lecture.
I am the Tokipon lecture guy. I am literally making the PowerPoint right now. I'm such a procrastinator. But yeah, I just started like a few hours ago. All right. Okay. I'll be right back.